Hi, my name is Paul Clifford. I am a director at Flourish. We procure businesses to shopping centres up and down the UK, currently run around 70. And we are the leading company within the sector in terms of both performance and the use of technology. And today, on my second podcast, I have Caroline Main, who I've known for quite a long time. It was about 10 years, we think, wasn't it? Something like that,
Mhm.
maybe even longer, through the years. And I thought it'd be interesting to get both the experience of someone within property management going through the ranks and going through the business over the last 10 or, well, we'll find out how long in a minute, but also from a woman's perspective, because over the last probably 20 years, so I've, in my time in shopping centres, which is probably 20 years, give or take, there's been a real shift in women taking more prominent positions within the market, and it's interesting to get a view and a perspective on that. So, welcome, Caroline,
Thank you, Paul. Nice to see you.
and
Uh,
you likewise.
As you say, we've known each other for a long time, so it's nice to actually sit down and have a
Yes,
proper
sit
chat.
down and have it and over a coffee.
Yeah,
Post to it at the Revo events and
yeah.
things that we used to
When
do in the
it's
past.
normally over a glass of
It
prosecco or
absolutely, yeah,
something.
yeah, a lot more, yeah, a lot more swearing. So, so just quickly, just a bit of an overview of your background, your journey, and where you are today.
Okay, so I started as a secretary for a very small company in Harrogate, commercial estates management,
Oh,
working for surveyors who managed industrial parks. So I was there for a couple of years and I kind of decided industrial parks not really my thing, bit boring.
mm,
But the lady that I worked with was a real mentor for me. She went off to Donaldson's, and so about 23 years ago, she created a job for me there to be her
Donaldson's. There's a
administrator
name from
there.
the past.
Absolutely,
There
blast
we
from the
are.
past.
I was within the Donaldson realm. God, that would have been 2007 or 8 or something like that. So
It,
very early on,
I had
as when I was
just
managing
left
shopping centres.
actually. I'd just
Ah,
left to
right.
go to
Okay.
King's Sturge at that point. But
Okay.
Donaldson's were great because they paid for me to do a real estate degree in my
Ah,
spare time. Took me 4 years. It was horrendous. Really hard work,
so
but
you
I
didn't
mean,
have
that
the
was a
student
great
loan issue that's
opportunity.
going around at the moment.
Exactly. No,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
paid for it. It was fantastic.
yeah.
Really, really good opportunity. And so when I left to go to King's Sturge, I then qualified as a chartered surveyor. And yeah, and then just that's actually where I met John Michelle, who was head of shopping centres there, who then later on I got the job with at MAP. He
Right.
was head of retail at MAP. So
You with work, you were workman between
workman
this,
for
weren't
8
you?
years
Yeah.
between that, yeah. I
Yes,
also
because
went
that's.
to Singapore, lived in Singapore for a year, but I
Oh,
wasn't
cool.
doing real estate. Couldn't get a job in real estate over there. I did try,
Oh, right.
but I got a job teaching in a preschool around the
Teaching.
corner
What were you
from
teaching?
teaching English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a segue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of
And you
a
lived there for a year.
difference.
Yeah,
Lived
yeah.
there for a year, yeah, and then, came back, went to DTZ for a bit, and then
Another name
workman.
from the past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And you're kind of always bumping into people that you used to work with before,
Yeah.
so big lesson.
It's just
Don't
this industry, isn't it?
very much
It's
so.
the same faces, different badges on this, almost like
Exactly.
the conveyor belt
It
within
is
an
a conveyor
airport,
belt, yeah,
but a different face and
totally.
different suit, and we get a bit greyer, and in my case, a bit more balder as time goes on. But nevertheless, the same faces.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, I was at a workman in Manchester office and
Mm.
then London office for 8 years, and then, John Michelle approached me to join him at MAP, and the interview was great, it was, "Oh, so I'm thinking of, stepping to one side after a couple of years, and
Mm.
then maybe you'd like to take over as head of retail." Then I joined in January 2020, you know what I'm gonna say, COVID hit.
Yeah, I remember
We
COVID.
also got the Into shopping centres as well, which was we had 4.
Wow.
Savills had the remainder, and MAP were given, the management of 4, including Eldon Square in Newcastle,
Yes, I know it.
which
Yeah.
was one of the biggest mandates that MAP had ever
Right.
brought on board.
And challenges.
Challenges,
Mm.
and John was leading on that, but then kind of I think something happened in COVID. I think it did to all of us a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we dressed
Kind of
down.
you kind of like we did, and we weren't around,
Yeah.
but I think you have a bit of a mindset shift, don't you, where you think things
Hmm.
priorities are slightly shifting a little bit, and I think
Yes.
John had that a little bit. He decided to go down to part-time, and
Okay.
I remember the phone call. "You're gonna have to take over the transition of the Into schemes, the whole of it,
Oh, wow.
and
How long
giving
had
you
you been
head of
there?
retail as well."
How long had you been there at that point?
It was about 6 months.
Oh, wow. So pretty early
Was
on then.
not what I was expecting at
No,
all, and I have
no.
to say I sank a little bit, I have to say. My mental health was
Mm,
pretty poor.
mm,
October 2020, I remember
mm.
sitting on my sofa in the morning crying my eyes out, and my
Right.
husband and my daughter were like, "Oh my God, work has broken mummy."
Yeah.
And I'm really
Yeah.
sorry that my daughter saw that,
Yeah.
because it's not something that you want your daughter to remember, "Work broke mummy." But I suppose in the long
Mm.
run, it shows resilience, doesn't it? If
Yeah.
whatever
And
doesn't kill you
yeah, and
makes you
also
stronger.
your kids see, I think, God, yeah, we've all got stories around mental health that and I think particularly around 2020 and the COVID period,
Mm.
the only positive thing about COVID at the beginning was the weather was great. If you remember in
Yeah, it was an
2020,
amazing
it
summer,
was
wasn't it?
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were able to go out in the garden.
Yeah.
So it was like 21. The weather was awful
Mm.
that first year, right? And we didn't open
And we
up till
still
what,
had lockdowns going on,
and we
and
still had a lockdown. But we
yeah.
opened up briefly in December, didn't we? For about, well, it varied around the country, but it was about three or
Yeah, and
four days.
essential
And everyone
stores and
thought,
all
we're out.
that, God.
We're back indoors
Yeah.
again. So, but it did affect a lot of people
Mm.
because suddenly we weren't socializing with family or friends. And as much as we love our family within our home,
There's only so much you
there's
can
only so
take.
much.
Yeah,
Bless them. We love them to
need a bit of
bits,
variation.
but we do need sometimes, and you find you starting to take the route of Tom Hanks on the beach creating Wilson the Ball, and you're talking to three of them in the kitchen having a meeting in your dressing
Yeah.
gown, and you probably know at that point it's time to time to time to get some help.
Mm.
But I joke about it, but at the same, it was really challenging for so many. We started
Mm.
up this company during COVID. It's horrible.
Amazing.
Well, we had a centre. We at the back end of 19, but then we ended up in COVID. So we ended up,
Yeah.
or it was me, one other, and the cat, um, who would regularly attend meetings at home. We would tend to, you just had to, make it survive, sell stuff. It's hard, isn't it?
Mm.
And I think it does have I don't think there is necessarily the understanding of the net effects on mental health and that imposter syndrome, and particularly in as you're saying, you're 6 months into the job
Mm.
and you're given something, and irrespective of capability, true capability, because we all doubt ourselves, don't we? I
Yeah.
mean, imposter syndrome is an interesting
Yeah.
thing in itself. It can be a motivator or a breaker, can't it?
Mm.
But for me, it keeps me in check because when you run a company, you need that someone who's constantly prodding you in the back, and that's the imposter syndrome individual.
Yeah. Good.
But I think equally it can be quite difficult and quite tough to manage. How did you deal with that particular period with the challenges of that moment of this is getting too much? We're at home, we can't leave the house. That must have been
Mm.
pretty awful.
Well, I think a lot of people had some issues with the drink, and so what I did
Mm,
was I stopped drinking during the week so that at least I could get some sleep, because it was really
mm,
giving me sleepless nights. And yeah, the way through it really was to prioritize mental health, really, just after that certain point. And I actually got some coaching as well. I had some coaching every month for
okay.
about 6 months, just an online or a phone call, which helped me through all of that period,
Mm,
and it helped me through. I was public speaking at a conference. I mean, you know what it's like if you're not very
mm.
good at public speaking.
No,
It's
no one
nerve
feels no
wracking.
one feels they're good at it.
No,
I think
ever.
everyone assumes the audience wants them to fail when it's
Yes.
never that big. Have you ever been in an audience and you see someone on stage when you're with them?
Mm.
Sort
You
of,
can feel it, can't
yeah.
you?
But generally, I haven't. I mean, I've seen you on. I've never seen that from you. I'm sure internally you feel that, but certainly
Yeah,
that's never been
definitely.
something. But I think we
Yeah.
all feel that moment. So that
Mm.
pause, and you think, oh my God, they've all noticed I've paused.
Mm.
But I think a bit like starting to doing this is that we're all human and we all approach things in a way that's human. And I think people weirdly connect with that approach to the polished Hollywood finish rhetoric that perhaps you would wish to be. I
Yeah.
think this is more who we are, and interestingly, probably more accepting since COVID. Uh, in a more human approach to things, be more connective in that sort of way.
Yeah,
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 perhaps.
definitely. Yeah.
So at that period, you then went through that particular difference. So
Mm.
I suppose two things from that. I suppose how did you get through that? You obviously had some coaching. Was that sort of coping mechanisms
Mm.
and acknowledgement of when things are gonna and knowing when to
Yeah.
back off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and just take a breather, really. It's
Mm,
so important just to step back and just to be honest, I don't think anything's ever gonna be as bad as that, because
mm,
once you've been through something bad.
yeah.
So at MAP, we then, last year before, they took on the management of London Bridge City, which again was probably the biggest
Well,
mandate that
yeah.
ever. And there's only a
Mm,
couple of us that had been through the into
Yep.
before. And the rest were all new and like, oh my God, this is horrendous. But us who'd been through the into transition
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we've been through this
Yeah.
before.
This is all right. This.
We've been through it. We've
Yeah.
succeeded. We can do it
Yeah.
again. So it's all to do with just taking stock and remembering that, you can actually do this.
Yeah.
And nothing's ever going to be as bad as that.
No. And we're all more capable, I think, aren't we, than we give ourselves credit for.
Oh,
We're
definitely.
our own worst. I mean, this isn't it? We're our own worst critics.
Critics, yeah.
And yet we're much more capable than we think we are.
So
at so many
resilient. It
things.
is
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
incredible. So it's very important to take stock of that and
It
keep
is.
remembering what your successes are.
But equally acknowledging when
Yeah.
you're at that point, that tipping point.
Yeah.
And I do wonder sometimes if is that a thing that people struggle to identify with and see it as a clear point. You're at failure, opposed to it being actually you're revving at 9,000 is what you are, and you need to just go in, switch off, relax, and they'll go and reset, and then come back more capable. I mean, I always tell my
Absolutely.
team, I'm always saying to my team, take on your weekends, go off, do things, take your holidays.
So important.
Well, because I know I'll get the best out of them as a result of that. So it's I suppose it's selfish in some respects
Yeah,
because I want them to
completely.
be. They can't. Yeah. I just want I want them to come back 100,
Yeah,
110%
and be
and be
happy.
better. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I like them to be cheerful and smiling. And so, but that coping mechanism thing becomes really quite important, and knowing and acknowledging it. And I suppose that served you probably well in both ways. In a couple of ways. One is that you acknowledge and understand when it's happening to you, and I probably for another podcast another day, but certainly there was two things I learned from going through a mental health thing many years ago. Was one is own it, opposed to look at things on the periphery that are to blame, so I kind of own it. And then secondly, taking those mechanisms and knowing they were mine to learn and to apply at the points of knowing when it was happening, and that became then. But that ownership, I think, where we sometimes, I think, in some cases, you see a lot of displacement of where the accountability is, and and sometimes it's down to us to take us out of that place. So even if that place is the bad place, it's about us taking ourselves out of that place. But equally, I suppose now with the team you have, so how big? How I mean, CBR is pretty huge. So
it is, but I'm mainly responsible for the team that manage the big four, which is Centre MK, Luton Point, Cribs Causeway, and Manchester Arndale, and we do some Sports Direct outlets as well. But my team is about 15 surveyors across the UK at the moment, but obviously working on growing that. So I think when you were talking about reset, I spent some time in between MAP and CBRE to do that reset.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky, to the point of being a little bit bored, actually. I probably spent about 2 months at home, like literally. And everyone else is so busy.
Yeah.
They're too busy to see you, too busy to message you back. It's like, God, this is...
Painful.
So I spent a lot of time on the Xbox, and I spent a lot of time thinking about resetting and just changing that mindset shift from... Because I really expected to be so nervous about this new job. Because to me, it's massive. From going from secretary making a coffee to head of retail property management.
There's quite a lot
at
in between
CBRE.
that. You're probably not giving yourself
There
credit
is
for.
a bit, maybe 25 years of a little bit, but it's of stuff, but I expected it to be so nerve-wracking. I expected to be so nervous. So I sat, actually, the week before I started, I sat and wrote a list of what I was expecting negatively. So I'm expecting to feel overwhelmed. I'm expecting to feel undermined. I'm expecting to be nervous, and all these different things. And then on the flip side, next to each of those bullet points, I wrote how I was going to counteract that.
Right. Okay.
Well, if you start to feel stressed or nervous, just take a break, go for a walk, reset. Remember that you're there for a reason. They chose you. They want you. People are going to listen to you and understand you, and they want your opinions. And it was just, that mindset shift was quite amazing. And I thought, I expected to go back to that list after a few months to remind myself, because I thought, I'm going to be so nervous. I have not looked at that list since I wrote it.
Oh, really? And did any of them come to fruition, or was it just a list you created as a contingency, not a plan, but necessarily a contingency perspective?
It must have helped. I mean, I'm not a journal. I don't journal or anything like that. I just don't. But that was a way, I suppose, of journaling. And I have not needed to revisit that list at all. I wasn't nervous on my first day.
Mm.
I'm not nervous going into meetings. I feel confident enough to say what I feel
Yeah.
and be listened to. And the confidence shift has been
Mm.
quite amazing.
But that's probably experience, isn't it? Of going through, it's all those things, the scars you obtain through your journey.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
I was going to say good and bad, but I suppose they are, aren't they? Because they strengthen your resolve. Also, they stress test you in various things, and I guess as you improve over time, um, your capability 5-10 years ago isn't what your capability is
Yeah, like
today.
your comfort zone. The
Yes.
more you stretch it, it's going to get bigger. And it's exactly the same concept, really, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So
Yeah.
going through that journey then, and the thing that so when I was first in this industry from retail, which was a big shift for me, starting in many shopping centres from managing stores. Some elements of familiarity, but not much, if I'm honest. Much more, it felt much more administrative. Felt much more. I talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, I felt when they offered me the job, I didn't bother returning the call because I was certain that they'd rang the wrong guy. I was running retail at Thorpe Park. And I
Brilliant.
thought, well, why are they shopping centres? Like
Yeah. Why do they want
agencies.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was an agency. I said, typical, just want a fee, don't they? So
Yeah.
ignore them. And they
Yeah.
caught me one day when in my office, picked up the phone, it was them. I was like, and then I said, all right, I'll come in and I'll have a look. And just connected. And that was in the days, it was Capital and Regional and the Mal Corporation.
Mhm.
And interestingly, I suppose then, in the senior roles within the company, bar one, Sarah, who's I'm not entirely sure where Capital Regional is these days, but I think Sarah's gone out. Her own was the only senior female within the group, within that team. Though that's changed quite a lot, it's quite interesting from your perspective about how that's evolved over the years. And I suppose what's created that change? Is it necessity and a sensible set of diversity plans, just try and understand perspectives of all people in all ways, or is it something else? But I don't know, because I am, of
I,
course,
I,
not a woman.
I don't think I know the answer either. It has changed,
Yeah.
definitely. But I don't think it's, I mean, it might be the guys at the top prioritizing diversity. It might be.
Hmm.
But I think people talk about it and don't necessarily apply it.
Yeah.
I think women have become more confident in their abilities. For some reason, men are born with this, sorry, Paul, men are born with this, of course I can do it attitude, but women are born with the, of course I can't do it. So you kind of have to work a bit harder just to
Yeah.
switch that. Everyone else thinks you can do it. It's just you that doesn't. It's just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know what the difference is, but I think that women are taken more seriously now.
Hmm.
When I became a fellow, the reason why I became a fellow of the
Yeah.
RICS is because I read an article that said that only 4% of fellows were women. But it was only 2019.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Let's change that. I mean, I thought it was totally out of reach. It's
Yeah.
you only know fellows as the old men who've been around
Yeah.
for.
I mean, the name itself, it doesn't. Perhaps it needed a rebrand. It would
Yeah,
attract
definitely. Yeah,
more people generally.
generally.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
younger
fellows
people as
doesn't.
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it doesn't engage.
No.
You don't want to be adding on your CV. I'm also a fellow. Yeah, I'm not
I know.
entirely sure that connects with anybody.
No, exactly. That's
I'm
absolutely
saying
right.
if it's some sort of derogatory term for fellows. Yeah,
But that is
branding
the
wise,
image in it. It's definitely the
stuffy
image.
old sort of rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I push myself to do that, and I think it's if I set myself a challenge, I do tend to just really stick to it. And within 2 months, I've got fellow. Within 2 months of applying for it and working towards it.
what is it exactly? What is fellow?
It is a level of experience. It's to do with client relationships, and
Nice.
you have to get a load of testimonials from people that you've worked
Okay.
with or led, or clients that you've worked with. And so it's quite a lot of hard work pulling it all together from your entire past career.
Yeah.
So it's that bit's the
And it's
hardest
throughout the
bit.
career you pull
Yeah,
information, so you can go
the whole
right.
time.
Oh wow, okay. So it's quite a lot of
And you have to reach a certain level of experience. But I mean, it's not to do with time or age. It's just, it is experience and being able to demonstrate it.
Yeah. The diversity thing always fascinates me because at one time my company was, I was the only male.
God.
In fact,
How did you feel about that,
I
Paul?
was, well, um, so going back a number of years, and this is going to sound awful to the male salespeople. When I worked in retail sales, worked in PC World for a while, and all my top salespeople were women, all of them, and these were various ages, middle-aged mums. It was a real group of a broad group of age groups, of women, and they were all the top performers within it. So, for whatever reason, and there is, I presume, a psychology behind it, that women seem to be better. Certainly, in my experiences, they've been in many cases better salespeople than men. But equally, I would get asked, "Oh, so you seem to have surrendered," but that was never the primary reason I ended up with. It was purely they were the best people for the job, and almost, when people would say about having women in the job, I would, I wouldn't be offended, but I'd be sort of offended for them. I said, well, no, they were just better. It was nothing to do with their
Exactly.
gender. They were
Yeah,
just the
it's not
better people
positive
for the job. Yeah,
discrimination.
it
It's
was.
just who's best for
I
the
believe
job.
it's sort of a meritocracy approach to when you employ people. That it's based on how they perform and who they are and what they
Absolutely.
do, opposed to purely trying to. Because I think interestingly, the diversity thing, it's perceived by many as a bit of a tick box exercise, when actually I suppose it's a natural occurrence when you're employing people
Absolutely.
of a quality.
My entire team at the moment are female.
Oh, interesting.
And, I've got so many people saying, "Oh, this is great. This is brilliant. Yay."
Yeah,
And I'm like, "No, it's not." I want diversity, actually. I actually want everyone to be different,
yeah,
different backgrounds, different beliefs. Why would you want completely all the same across the board?
yeah,
So if I'm recruiting, I'm not positively discriminating. Obviously, I
yes.
want who's right for the job. But I mean, it is a massive plus for me if I can have different people.
And also you get different experiences.
Yeah.
There's an interesting other podcast with I think it might have
There's
been.
no other podcast,
Well,
Paul.
there may be one, maybe Diary of a CEO, and it's with a guy called Matthew Saeed, fascinating guy who's an ex ping pong player, and he talks about diversity in quite detail, and talks about cognitive diversity. He talks about, as an example, if you were an agency full of middle-aged white men and you're successful, but now you want to appeal and market to an Afro-Caribbean group, the cognitive diversity is to have people from that background in order to connect with those people. So that makes sense. He says, but equally, the other example I gave, which was fascinating, was he was at a conference when they were talking about diversity is critically important, so on. And someone raised their hand and said, well, if I've got an Olympic team and I'm in the 800 relay, and I have the ability to clone Usain Bolt 8 times, I have zero diversity, and my likeliness of winning is so diversity in all its forms. It doesn't necessarily always apply, but
Yeah.
I guess it's that the right form of diversity for that particular job. But it is a natural occurrence, as it is in my company. And there's now another 3 or 4 guys that are within the business, but that wasn't because they were guys. It was just because they were right for the business. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's interesting, isn't it? I always think life is the kind of a game of millimeters, isn't it? It's a bit like if trajectory. If you look at trajectory of anything, if it moves on the ground 1 mil, it's X amount above. And life is a little bit like that. And it's not just one shift. We move left, right. It's turn left, not right, etc. It's very difficult to go back and take a truly objective view on that, might be. But I suppose part of it you've already touched on, which is the imposter syndrome and the capability that you were unlocking during that period, which occurred over time. And although there were no doubt challenges in that, but I think that's the sort of the stress test that we all have to go through, because we're not all geared for it. So there's a lot of us that are happy doing what we do in the way that we do it, and we finish work at 5 on a Friday, and we go to the pub, and we watch TV on the weekend, and then we go, oh God, it's Monday tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that's the cycle, and that's all good and fine. And then there are others that are slightly more nuts, like us,
Itchy feet.
itchy feet, want a bit of
Yeah. Always. Once you
yeah,
get somewhere,
yeah,
you want a little bit more. Or you want like, oh, you bought that house. I want a bigger house now.
yeah,
Right now, what's next?
yeah,
Me and my husband are absolutely
yeah,
the same in that
yeah.
respect. In that, you get what you want, and now actually I want something more now.
What's up?
I've proved it to myself that I can do that, and I want to get bigger and better now. That's
Yeah.
always been the case throughout my career and his. We're both very ambitious.
Yeah.
It's very important to have someone at home, a partner who really has an appreciation and understanding of your ambitions, because
Yeah.
if you are working like a dog and you're hardly there, they need to understand why, and they need to be fully backing. And I think my husband has been he's my biggest fan,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, absolutely.
Always pushing me.
Yeah.
If I say I can't possibly do that, it's like, why not? Of
Yeah.
course you can.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
are the reasons why.
Yeah.
And he's always been like my biggest fan when it comes to
Yeah.
things like that. I
Yeah.
think it's really important.
Yeah. My wife sort of backed me right at the beginning, because we essentially had investment, and then that went, and I rang her and said, "Oh, I've essentially lost the job. I've lost my kind of job, so to speak." And she just said, "No." She said, "That's great." She said, "This is what you're always meant to do, and I'll back you until we're in that position." And
So
that's
important.
and having that person, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, is really important. But it's interesting to talk about wanting more, and I think part of that is, interestingly, I find you have this love-hate with. We're getting very much into the psychology theory, really, aren't we? But that this sort of love-hate between stress and those periods of silence, and as much that when it's silent you're stressed, when you're in a degree of stress it's stressful, but less stressful than the silence, because you need that degree. You need to be in that point of a degree of turbulence, not the 9,500 revs thing, but you need to be sort of,
Yeah. Well, it's
in a-
boring, isn't it?
yeah,
Otherwise.
you need to be
So
in a position of,
Yeah.
you need to be a degree of
Just
stress.
a certain percentage of stress is
Yeah.
absolutely
Does
ideal.
your husband need to know you're looking for a bigger house now?
It's
You've
been
dropped
on
that?
the list since we bought the house we've got.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're still looking at your move and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
I heard
definitely.
a really good quote. It's interesting about sort of things that you acquire as as things go on in life. And that quote was along the lines of, "You've already achieved all the things that you once thought would make you happy." And you're always moving that gauge. And going back to the earlier days of the Caroline making coffee, would have been overwhelmed, probably not even at this point, probably prior, with all the things you'd achieved at that point. And yet today you're still playing for, which I get, because you have to keep moving. Momentum is key.
Not everyone's like that, though, I don't think.
No.
There's only certain people who are constantly striving for more and hungry for more.
Yes.
And I didn't realise I was like that when I was the Caroline making coffee.
Is that the drug of progression?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it is, but also trying to prove people wrong all the time. That's another reason why I became a fellow, is to prove that I could do it. And like I said before, uh, being a female in quite a male-dominated, certainly back 20, 25 years ago, it was a case of trying to prove myself as good as, if not better than the men, definitely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I think there were some major setbacks in terms of career progression around about that time. So like my mid to late 20s, around about the time I was getting qualified, at Donaldson's, for example, it was part of your career progression. You had to focus on client entertainment.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I
a lot
mean,
of
for
deals were done
blokes,
then,
but
weren't they?
exactly,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's easier for blokes, isn't it? You can just go down the pub and you can have a nice old boys chat and the deals are done.
Yeah.
But for a woman, as I found out to my detriment on a few
Oh, okay.
occasions, that it would be construed differently, and not the
Oh,
way that was intended.
okay. I don't know.
Because it doesn't, you can't tick the box of
Yeah.
did a deal down the pub.
But how would you have other way? I mean, I don't know if you're saying that was the wrong thing to do, but what else could you do? I mean, it just seems to be that you're in a position that, and I suppose that's the male-dominated period. But how long ago is this? Sort of 10 years ago?
So, no, we're talking 20.
Oh,
20.
wowzers. Okay, so yeah, because
It's a certain generation, put it that way.
I think it is. And also, you said about the deals are sort of done in the pub. That's less now a thing,
Yeah,
because there's so much more involved in terms of
definitely.
signing off things where, even as when I was centre manager, I was signing off contracts for the sensors, and I couldn't do those after. I mean, towards the end of my shopping centre manager, they were being signed off centrally. So
Yeah.
things had moved, and probably rightfully so, to sense check, because there was lots of allegedly sort of drunken deals done in pubs. Waking up in the morning, they've got a contract in front of them. So without a counter signatures, it would be this day. But So for women then who are in the industry or coming in the industry, as we're saying, and obviously you've got a whole team of women, but perhaps through other elements of the industry, there's still perhaps pockets of gaps where the women are perhaps not as strongly represented as they are in your office. So what advice would you give just to a young graduate female that were wanting to come into the industry and start to take, well, what would be that first step? They've just passed whatever it is they pass in order to become the person they wish to be.
They've passed their APC to
A
become qualified as a chartered surveyor.
That's pretty, took the words out
There
of my
you go.
mouth. That's
There you
exactly what I
go.
was thinking.
And they want to progress up the ladder.
Yeah. So where would you be? So you're now one of the, I suppose, a gatekeeper, I suppose, of these individuals that would be not necessarily applying at that level, but within that broader industry. So how
Mm.
best do they go about doing that?
I think it's important that they seek a mentor. It's really important. Doesn't have to be someone even in the industry, but
Mhm.
it does help, I suppose. I've been a mentor with the Circle Partnership for the past 2 years, which
Okay.
is predominantly women mentoring younger women through the profession. And I've seen my mentees go through promotions, and it's been
Mm.
fantastic. But I think it's really important that they have someone um, who can share their experiences,
Yeah.
and they can learn from, and they know that whatever setbacks they have, they can get through it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I like to give back in that respect, because I had a lot of mentors throughout my career
Hmm.
that I wouldn't be where I am today without those individuals, and I think that really helps. It's very difficult to do it on your
Yeah.
own without someone supporting you.
Yeah.
It just is. For anybody,
Yeah.
not just
I suppose
females.
it's rewarding as well. You get a bit
Yeah.
of a dopamine hit when you see one of the
Oh,
people that you've
definitely.
introduced, or I
Yeah.
mean, we have that today, I suppose, more so with the small businesses that we bring in, and they become a
Yeah,
success in
exactly.
themselves, and
Yeah,
that
that
in
must
itself.
be
So it's
such a huge
oh,
sense of
it's a
achievement.
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always gutting when it doesn't work because
Mm.
there's sort of two sides to the coin, but it's for us, it's about how much effort and time we've put into that individual, which is, we were talking about this a little while ago, is about the transactional nature of our industry.
Mm.
We're aiming not to be that. We want
Mm.
to have more vested interest in those
People.
people and those
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
But in the same way, we've got people within the company that have grown and developed. That's really quite an achievement of the team as a whole, because
Mm.
culturally everyone's been a part of that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you've introduced them and brought them in and mentored them, that must be, equally, if not more so, rewarding
Mm.
to see these people become, and even
Absolutely.
more so. And so, if you were to pick out one of your mentors, who would that? Who one of your
I've had
key
a
mentors?
few. I've had a few. So Susie was my first one at Commercial Estates Management in Harrogate when she then moved to Donaldson's. I would not be where I am today if she hadn't created
Yeah,
a job with her at Donaldson's, and she made them pay for that degree that I did.
wow.
I would not be.
So she was pivotal then.
She was
She
absolutely
was sort of the
pivotal.
kernel of your
Absolutely.
beginning of your
She
career.
spotted something in me and said, "You can do this."
Yeah,
It's like, I don't think so. Yeah,
yeah,
you definitely can, and I'll show you how.
yeah, yeah.
Could not have done it without her. And then there's been several individuals since then. Obviously, there was John Michelle, James Taylor at Workman. He was a great fan of mine. It's just so important to have a boss who has your back.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
there's been certain places I've worked where it's not been the case, and it's been quite a different
yeah.
experience. Much more of a difficult battle going into work every day when your boss couldn't stand in a room without you and
Mm,
talk about you in a positive way. I mean,
yeah.
it's just
Well,
quite
that'd be
hard.
wearing on anybody,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
very, very. And
Yeah,
it knocks your confidence as well. But if you've got someone who believes in you more than you do, then it absolutely speaks volumes. It's
yeah,
so important.
yeah. And again, it goes back to this small industry thing. I was going to say, actually, in terms of Susie, wasn't it? In terms of the,
Yeah.
does she still working within the
You know what?
industry?
She came to work for me at MAP.
Oh, right. Came to work for you at Matt.
Yeah,
Oh,
in my
wow. Okay,
team.
interesting. And how did that work? Because obviously it's not turning.
It
Well,
was
yeah, oh,
yeah, it was very strange.
yeah,
She was the kind of individual who wasn't as ambitious as constantly striving. She was quite happy to do the day to day
right.
and stay as a kind of director level and just do the day to day on shopping centres. That's all she wanted to do. So she came to join my team maybe for about a year and a half, 2 years. She came from Hammerson to MAP, so that was quite a different maybe difficult transition for her to go from client side to a managing agent, and a much smaller managing agent as well. So she found it quite difficult.
Mm.
She's now gone to Savills, so
Oh, okay, right.
she's still in the industry.
I was going to say, I wonder how she feels about your progression, considering she was.
Oh, it's been great to catch up with her since all of this
Mhm.
progression, and she's just she's so pleased.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? For me, I had one many years ago, but it was in my retail days. A guy called Robert Mitchell, and he was my first area manager who gave me a shop. But in running my first store, he told me that it was no substitute for having your own keys to your own shop. When I was running
Nice.
departments, which were quite different,
Yeah.
and was very very much about business plans. I mean, and I'm going back to God 91 or something. But I'm still in contact with him today, and I've never really asked him actually. But I think I think everyone assumes that everyone assumes the journey's been easier than it's been,
Mm.
and you talk about some of the stuff that you went through during COVID. I don't think everyone just sees the highlights, don't they?
Mm.
And not necessarily the tough stuff that's forged you to be able to do what it is that you do today. Um,
Mm.
and I suppose then from the mental health stuff, what what advice would you give anyone else who's, because it's become such a prominent element, I think.
It's all to do with self-care, isn't it? I mean, I think you mentioned you have to own it.
Mhm.
You have to identify it first. You have to realize what's happening, and sometimes you don't necessarily.
No.
Um, when I had my time off between MAP and CBRE, I actually took an open university course on the subject of adolescent mental health,
Oh, okay.
because my daughter's just coming up to 13, and I wanted to I wanted to learn more about the different elements of mental health,
Yeah.
and this course covered everything from self-harm to eating disorders to depression, anxiety, and not just for kids
Hmm.
or teens,
Yeah.
which is very different mindset because it's all to do with their prefrontal cortex not being trimmed properly, apparently.
Trimmed.
Trimmed, yeah.
Okay,
It's
that's an interesting.
you kind of learn when you're a teenager what's right and what's wrong,
Yes.
and that resilience of the mental health
Hmm.
issues that you're navigating through trims your prefrontal cortex,
Oh, right.
apparently. I know, wonderful.
Wow. That's
Which happens later in teens, and you're much more resilient. And I think that that awareness, raising awareness of what the signs are early, has helped enormously in kind of you just tease out a few questions,
yeah.
and then and we'll go from there, and don't make a big deal out of it. And I think that's very important for adults as well, is to identify but then work on your own resilience,
Yeah.
and work on it.
Work on the
Only you
skills.
can do it though.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think you've got to own it, and then you've got to
Yeah.
determine how it is you. But this is I think part of the challenge is how do you ever package up something that's going to be good for everybody?
Mm,
It's almost near impossible. All you can
yeah.
do is exactly as you're doing there, I suppose, is with colleagues, friends.
Mm,
It was a great. Simon Sinek. The book of why. Why we. Before.
yeah.
But he talked about um, friends who keep everything to themselves, and it
Mm,
says about how a privilege it is as an individual to be able to support your friends through these types of things, and how dare they not bring you in to be to I think he makes reference to sitting in the mud with them.
yeah.
It's a brilliant, a very short speech. It's all over social networks, but it's this, and always he's quite emotional about it, about that connection with those people going through those difficult times. But it's being able to identify and then being willing to sit in the mud, and everyone's got their own stuff. It's interesting is that if you have someone, it's not, you always see these things where people are suggesting, no one cares, work harder. This T-shirt that goes around, and I think it's a bit lost in as much working hard is important, and being productive, but equally, I
Mm,
think if, for example, your best friend had an accident in the car and just damaged the car, not hurt themselves, bit of damage on the side, it's going to cost them a few grand. by lunchtime you're eating lunch and you're getting on with life, and it isn't because you don't care. If it was a life-changing event, I suspect you'd see it differently. But we've all got our own damaged cars or our own leaking
Mhm.
roof, and we've all got things that we've got to get on. So I don't think it's a lack of care. I do wonder if it's just purely a position of we've all got our priorities in life and we've all
Mm.
got our lives to lead. And it isn't a lack of care, it's just purely one of it hasn't affected them significantly so that they're in hospital. Of course, that would be quite different. And I think there's sometimes a misinterpretation of the two things, just from a layman perspective.
Yeah, and everyone's different. Everyone has different levels of coping,
Mm.
or different size stress buckets is
Yes.
sometimes a way of thinking about it. And I think, like we were saying earlier, once you've been through something really stressful,
Mm.
actually that stress bucket gets bigger and allows more stress later
Yes.
on because you've been through it before
Yes.
and you came out the other side and you survived.
Yeah.
So,
As per the Into
yeah,
versus the newer
absolutely.
project, and I
Yeah,
guess it's that experience that,
yeah,
well, or it tells you there's my limit. I know where
yeah,
my limit is. Although I always sort of say to my son, you've got to today. Today arguably has to be easier for tomorrow to be possible. You have to be able, in order to progress and move forward.
yeah,
Today can't be stressful. So almost the stress is just has to be dealt with. We have to work through it and deal with it in order to get through to tomorrow. So,
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, mental health is a really interesting thing. So in the last few minutes now, going back to just CBR, a couple of things. One is, what is that journey for you? Do you think, although you're early in, look over the next couple of years in CBRE? What are your priorities? What are you aiming to deliver, achieve within CBRE?
Massively focusing on growth, client retention, client satisfaction. But growth is probably the biggie for me. Um, I think there's so much opportunity in terms of prime
Mm,
retail. We are very experienced in managing large prime locations, and having that kind of portfolio
yeah.
is good for future growth. And there's a couple of pockets of relationship building that's been required
Mm,
already. I think the past couple of months for me have been focusing on building that back up,
mhm,
getting CBRE retail property management back out there, because
mhm,
there's a lot of people still. When I said where I was going, like, what do you actually manage?
mm,
Don't know. And who's the surveyors in your team? I don't know who they are. So I'm focusing on get. That's why I'm posting on LinkedIn about my visits to cribs, and
yeah.
it's just so. By the way, we manage this. Did you
Yeah.
know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it is. So I'm doing that at the moment, and then this year we'll be focusing on just growth. I think is important.
And so, finally, the last couple of minutes, it's like almost over. Look,
Mm,
it's flown. Having
nice.
fun, just chatting away, drinking coffee.
Letting it go
Um,
cold.
it is cold now. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't go near it. Don't go near it. Um, so, so that's professionally, but personally, I suppose what's Caroline over the next 5 years? What are your personal goals as an individual? That going back to the young girl that was making tea in the office through to where you see yourself in over the next 5 years. I know it's always a bit of a loaded question, this one, but it's interesting to see where your vision is, progression wise, etc.
The bigger house.
Oh yeah, well, of
Don't
course,
forget
that, yeah,
about the
yeah.
bigger
It
house.
just feels
That's
like
the
you're planting
priority.
seeds for the husband when he watches
Oh, he
this.
knows.
He'll
He
be like,
knows.
"Oh God,
We
big
yeah,
house,
bigger house in the middle of nowhere, no neighbours.
no neighbours."
Gravel drive.
Although, oh, don't do the gravel drive; they get everywhere. It'd be in the house. Honestly, you won't want to gravel. Get
I
it
don't
tarmacked.
care.
Get it resin. But the great thing about the bad thing about remote places is there's nowhere to shop either. So to get a
This
pint of
is
milk
it.
is
Well,
is
this is
5 miles. Yeah,
Well, we're gonna set up a bar as well
get a
in
cow.
get a cow, some chickens and a goat
Oh
maybe,
my
and
God. Okay. Yeah, my life.
perfect, spot
Yeah,
on,
to
absolute
like a
spot
modern
on.
Aunt Sally.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
those that might remember Wills or Gummidge from a number of years ago. And so, from a career-wise, so obviously you're developing this team, you're learning the
yeah,
team,
yeah.
strengthening the proposition that
Mm,
CBRE have, which is already strong itself. We do a couple of bits and pieces with CBRE at the moment,
mhm.
and so are you looking to continue to go on the journey, progressing through the company in order to take a more senior role, or you're quite happy where you are at the moment, or are you just not thinking that far ahead?
I
Not giving too much away,
it
obviously.
I know I've only been here a couple of months, so it is kind of I really do need to be focusing on what I'm doing now and building the growth. Over the next 5 years, I want CBRE retail property management to be huge.
Yes.
So we'll see. Watch this
I
space.
see where that goes. And
Mm,
it's an interesting market. There's a lot of things going on the market. There's a
mm.
lot of things, a lot of people in the market buying.
Yeah, yeah, and there's
Mm.
a lot going on in Europe as well. So
Mm.
that's another good thing about my position where I am. I represent the UK, and I'm also kind of in touch with all the others
Of the
in
European.
in Europe as well.
All right. So I guess next stage is Caroline International. Is a
Let's
is
just
this a well, we'll
Europe
start with
and
you.
then
Yeah.
international.
Well,
Yeah,
if
let's
you
do
do Ireland, then you are arguably international.
yes,
So
that'll
just
do.
pick one
Yeah,
little place there, and then you'll be sorted.
yeah, that'll do.
That'll do.
That'll do.
Well,
Yeah,
look, that wasn't too bad, was it? So,
yeah,
yeah,
it's all right.
it's a bit of trepidation and all that doing these
Wasn't
sorts
as
of things. But
controversial as I thought I was going to get into, to be honest.
there's nothing controversial about what any of us do on occasion. But anyway, there we go. We're all done. Thank you
Brilliant.
very much for your time, Caroline.
Thank you,
And
Paul.
I will no doubt. Well, I'll see you at conferences. I
Absolutely. I'll
suspect
see
on
you next
stage,
week.
presumably next week, and we'll have a little pop-up stand in the background. So
Yes.
when this goes out, this will all been and gone. So it'll be history. But thank you for coming.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.